What if Reinhard van Astrea was in Demon Slayer? One thing we can be sure of, he would humiliate the demons in every possible way. Look, Reinhardt is basically a character who is practically breaks ReZero. So how would the current weapons master put an end to Muzan and his upper moons? Even better, what changes would he make to the story? And after all, how did he end up in the Demon Slayer universe? Well, as we know, the world of ReZero has several mystical and powerful creatures. While encountering one of them during an expedition, Reinhardt is sent to the Demon Slayer universe. Through a powerful and ancient magic, the weapons master lands in the middle of a dense forest located on Mount Natagumo. At the height of despair, when Rui's webs, the lower moon 5, were about to end Tanjiro and Nezuko's journey, it's not Tomioka or a Hashira, it's Reinhardt who appears to save them. It's Reinhardt who makes his triumphant entrance and with his own hands cuts Rui's steel webs as if they were mere leaves. Rui, used to seeing humans as mere pieces of meat to be sliced by his steel threads, launches his fiercest attack. The webs that should have cut Reinhardt into 1,000 pieces simply swerve away. They curve in the air as if they were afraid to touch the knight's skin. And this happens due to the divine protection of evasion, one of the thousands of blessings that make Reinhardt untouchable by projectiles and long-range attacks. While Tanjiro watches with his mouth open, the Sword Saint walks calmly without even drawing his legendary dragon sword, Hadi. It remains still in its sheath. And the craziest detail about this sword is that it refuses to be drawn against anyone it doesn't consider a worthy opponent. The battle, if we can even call it that, is a brutal example of how Reinhardt is a being who rewrites all the rules of this universe. Without a sword to draw, Reinhardt takes from Tanjiro his katana, which was broken by the Oni's threat. He doesn't just wield it, he saturates it with such an absurd amount of mana that the vibration of the metal starts to emit an intense heat, similar to the heat of the sun. With a movement that Rui's eyes can't follow, far surpassing the hypersonic speed of elite hunters, Reinhardt cuts through the air. The strike doesn't just decapitate the lower-ranked demon, it incinerates its cells at a molecular level, preventing any attempt at regeneration. Tanjiro, still wounded and protecting Nezuko, sees in Reinhardt something beyond a hunter. He sees a living fortress of kindness. When Giyu Tomioka and Shinobu Kocho arrive to finish the job, they don't find a pile of bodies, but a foreigner gently talking with young Kamado about the nature of his sister. Reinhardt's presence puts the Hashiras' senses on alert. When explaining to the hunters about Nezuko, where did she come from, the Hashiras decide to take Reinhardt to see Kagaya Ubuyashiki, the leader of the Demon Hunters Corps. Reinhardt's presence is so intense that Gyomei Himejima, even miles away, would feel the pressure of a soul that the world refuses to let be lost. The Sword Saint doesn't see Nezuko as a monster. His divine protection of discernment allows him to see the remaining purity within her. Reinhardt's final technique will change everything the Hashiras believe about sun breathing, and you'll find out why if you keep watching this video. For now, notice that when he arrives at the Demon Hunter's core, Sanemi challenges Reinhardt because he can't accept that, just like Tanjiro and Tomioka, there's someone who protects Oni. Like a brave knight, Reinhardt accepts the challenge. And well, we know how this is going to end, don't we? Sanemi feels a huge rage when he sees the disdain Reinhardt shows by refusing to draw his sword against him. Instead, Reinhardt, with his own fists, gives Sanemi a lesson about life and death, showing that the strong can decide the path they want to follow. When Kagaya intervenes, the leader of the organization understands that the Sword Saint is the turning point needed to end 1,000 years of destruction and bring a definitive conclusion to this war between humans and demons. Buyashika explains to Reinhardt that, to return to his world, he must find Muzan Kibutsuji, the king of the Onis. Someone with knowledge of every existing Oni, some of whom have unique powers. Such powers could take him back to his homeland. Soon, Reinhardt agrees to accompany the hunters in search of the king of the Onis. On the Infinity Train, the dynamics change radically. While Enmu tries to trap everyone in their dreams, Reinhardt remains standing with his eyes open. His mind is protected by the divine protection against suggestion, making Enmu's hypnotic suggestions useless against his mind. When waking up Tanjiro and the others, unlike in the original storyline, Reinhardt locates the core of the demons in seconds just by the flow of energy. But look, Reinhardt not only allows Tanjiro and Inosuke to deal with the lower moon so they can mature in battle, he instructs them to better perceive the flow of natural energy. This makes Tanjiro absorb the idea and remember how his father dealt with the bear that was about to attack their house, awakening the transparent world. But will this be enough for Tanjiro to face the next challenge that's coming? Watch and see. After the train derails, Akaza, Upper Moon 3 appears before Reinhardt's blue eyes. The question that remains in our minds is, will Reinhardt save Rengoku and exterminate Akaza? Well, if there was any doubt about how extremely OP Reinhardt is, it's going to be cleared up now. Forget everything you learned about Akaza's compass needle. The Upper Moon 3's technique depends on detecting the opponent's fighting spirit. It's something he uses to predict movements with absolute precision. But when facing Reinhardt, Akaza goes into a state of mental collapse. The Sword Saint has no bloodlust, hatred, or desire to fight. He acts as an extension of the world's own will. To Akaza's compass, Reinhardt is an absolute nothing. Something that makes his attacks impossible to read. Look, Reinhardt fights alongside Rengoku without drawing his legendary sword. And at the decisive moment, Reinhardt intercepts Akaza's destructive blow with the palm of his hand. And the impact that should have obliterated the human doesn't even wrinkle his uniform. Remember, Reinhardt has already flown from planet Earth to the moon and returned intact to the battle. Kyoji Rengoku's salvation is the moment we all wanted to see. Leave a like if you also felt that tightness in your chest when you saw Flame Hashira take his last breath in the original work. Well then. Here, Reinhardt stops Akaza's fist from going through Rengoku's chest, holding the demon's arm with a strength that immobilizes him in place. Akaza uses the same strategy to escape from Rengoku. He cuts off his own arms and after regenerating them, launches powerful long-range attacks against the train cars. This makes the knight and the Hashira charge toward the attacks to stop them from hitting the passengers, allowing upper rank 3 to escape at sunrise. Notice that Akaza only survives because Reinhardt prioritizes protecting the passengers and the wounded, but the psychological defeat of the Upper Moon is absolute. After the victory on the Infinity Train, Rengoku stays at the Demon Slayer headquarters to recover from the fight. Soon, the Demon Slayers head to the Entertainment District alongside Tengen Uzui. Thanks to the divine protection of discernment, Reinhardt immediately notices the distortion in Daki's essence locating the Upper Moon, even under her disguise as a courtesan. When the battle begins, Reinhardt takes a defensive stance, allowing Tanjiro to test his abilities, both the Hinokami Kagura and the transparent world. But he intervenes to ensure that no collateral damage affects the civilians or the structure of the district, thanks to the swordsmanship techniques taught by Reinhardt. In the recovery period between the Mugen train and the entertainment district, Tanjiro beheads Oni. With the appearance of Gyutaro, the situation becomes lethal due to the poison. However, Reinhardt uses his divine protection of immunity to purify the environment and protect Uzui from the poisonous attacks of the blood sickles. Reinhardt acts as an invulnerable support, blocking Gyutaro's critical attacks and restraining the movements of both siblings simultaneously. This allows Tengen Uzui to perform the double decapitation with his Nichirin blades without suffering serious injuries. Because of Reinhardt, the fight doesn't push Tanjiro to his limit. This doesn't trigger the awakening of the Demon Slayer mark. Due to his minor injuries and the inspiration of fighting alongside the Sword Saint, the Sound Hashira decides not to retire. This keeps the Demon Slayer core at its maximum strength, and that's insane. Because unlike the original timeline, the core has all the Hashira active, something that completely changes the whole playing field in this war. Without serious injuries, Tanjiro and the others don't fall into a coma. They're able to train their skills and strengthen them. Tanjiro wears down his sword during training with Reinhardt. The two go to the Swordsmith village to get a new one. Reinhardt realizes that although he saved lives, he created a gap in their growth. The hunters have become dependent on his absolute protection, and the Sword Saint knows he won't belong to this world forever. Remember how Reinhardt taught the concept of seeing the flow of vital energy to Tanjiro and Inosuke, making Tanjiro awaken the transparent world? Well then, here he uses his divine protection of instruction to teach Tanjiro how to master this skill. Something that puts Tanjiro's perception on the same level as Upper Moon 1 Kokushibo. And we should remember that Kokushibo's transparent world is so advanced thanks to his centuries as a demon that he was able to realize that Muichiro was his descendant just by looking at the mist Hashira. When the invasion of Rantengo and Gyoku begins, Reinhardt doesn't rush to decapitate Upper Moons 4 and 5 instantly. He prioritizes protecting the village while Muichiro and Tanjiro deal with Rantengo's clones in the room. However, instead of Muichiro being blown away by a gust of wind and running into Gyoku, the one who encounters Upper Moon 5 is Reinhardt, who was on his way to defend the village. Upper Moon 5 would try to trap the Sword Saint in his water prison, but the attack would simply miss the target due to Reinhardt's divine protection of evasion. Before the demon could even process what happened, Reinhardt would use a speed that surpasses any hypersonic movement to decapitate Gyoku. With his hand imbued with mana, the fight would end in the blink of an eye, without Gyoku awakening his strongest form, ensuring the complete safety of the Swordsmith village. Upon returning to Tanjiro, both hunters would still be fighting against Rantengo's clones. Against Rantengo's multiple emotions, Reinhardt would not only use his swordsmanship but also activate his passive mana absorption ability, draining the life energy from the environment and instantly weakening the power of the blood demon arts of Upper Moon 4. While the Sekido and Karako clones tried to attack with devastating lightning and winds, the divine protection of evasion and reflection would cause each element to dissipate or be sent back against the demons. Observing his tremendous strength, the demons merge and transform into Zorakuten. Reinhardt allows Tanjiro to train with Zorakuten. Meanwhile, through the divine protection of mind reading, Reinhardt would ignore the distractions from the clones, and he would identify the scent of pulsating fear in the hidden original body, moving toward it to decapitate it. But notice that now Muzan gains enough knowledge about the Master of Arms, seeing how his abilities work through the eyes of his demons. Soon he would set out to invade the Demon Hunters organization to absorb the strongest man alive. You might think that Muzan is crazy for wanting to take on Reinhardt, and I have to say he really is, but he has a plan. Trap Reinhardt in the Infinity Castle against his thousands of demons, wearing him down and then sneakily absorbing him. But what about Nismo? Without awakening her ability to survive under the sun as a demon, Tamayo wouldn't have enough genetic material to be able to cure her. Well, with Reinhardt's divine protection, he provides his blood, which is immune to corruption and viruses, to Tamayo so she can study it and find a cure for Nismo. Sensing the danger and chaos, Ubuyashiki is the one who calls for the Hashira training. Reinhardt trains Tanjiro intensively until he awakens his Demon Slayer mark and the dynamic shifts from preparation to survival against a god. Reinhardt takes on the role of the final instructor. Imagine all the Hashira united, Sanemi, Iguro, Gyomei, Giyu and the others attacking Reinhardt simultaneously. To the Sword Saint, their movements seem to be in slow motion. He defeats them repeatedly using only wooden sticks, forcing them to reach a state of exhaustion. So much so that their Demon Slayer marks awaken purely by instinct for self-preservation, in the face of a density of power that not even Yomei's transparent world could fully decipher. Reinhardt is not only making them stronger, he is laying the groundwork for what is to come next. In the Infinity Castle, I will tell you how Reinhardt's presence turns the final massacre into a divine judgment, where I will reveal how the divine protection of the Phoenix silences Muzan's last scream. So look, when Muzan invades the core and sends everyone to the Infinity Castle, he separates the Hashiras and puts them face to face with his most powerful demons. However, the balance is completely different. The Hashiras have a much better mastery of hunter skills than in the original timeline. Tanjiro and Rengoku would defeat Akaza. Shinobu and Giyu would defeat Upper Moon Tuduma. Kokushibo would be defeated by Gyomei, Sanemi, Uzui, Muichiro, and Genya. None of the Hashiras died during the battle thanks to the training with the Sword Saint. However, Reinhardt's relentless battle against the thousands of demons seems to have no end, until the collapse of the Infinity Castle, where Reinhardt comes face to face with Muzan, the king of the demons. In disbelief that his demons were wiped out, Muzan uses the same strategy that Akaza used in the Mugen train, attacking the weakest, forcing Reinhardt to worry more about protecting others than about the enemy in front of him. In the midst of the battle, the Hashiras regroup, and now that they're all united and stronger, they can handle Muzan, right? Well, that could happen, but there would be casualties because to defeat Muzan, they need to hold him off until the sun rises. That's something that's very possible. However, Muzan launches a devastating attack that, in the original storyline, would poison Tanjiro's blood and make him pass out. However, here he does it with the purpose of transferring his blood through his tentacles to Tanjiro, turning him into a demon to fight by his side. Seeing Tanjiro transform, Reinhardt feels strong emotions. Unfortunately, Reinhardt, as a character who defies the very script, uses one of his most overpowered abilities. The ability to obtain new divine protections, as needed. Exactly, that's insane. He obtains the divine protection of immunity transfer. Reinhardt transfers his protection against viruses and corruptions to Tanjiro simply by touching him with mana. With that, Reinhardt admits that Muzan is powerful, the most powerful he has faced since he arrived here. Admitting this, he draws his legendary sword, Hike, for the first time. He makes sure the Hashiras protect the rest of the core and that everyone moves away. With a simple vertical slash charged with the divine protection of the Phoenix and the accumulated power of Hike, the attack doesn't just cut Muzan's body, it severs his very connection to immortality. Even if Muzan tries to explode into 1,000 pieces to escape like he did against Yorichi, Reinhardt's aura keeps the cells trapped in a gravitational force field. When the sun rises, the sun exposes what's left of Muzan to the daylight. Reinhard van Astrea sheathes his sword once again. He doesn't feel hatred, only the peace of someone who has fulfilled his duty. His presence drastically changed the course of events, the survival of all the Hashiras and a world of peace. And in the end, Subaru and Beatrice managed to bring Reinhardt back to his world by defeating the powerful mystical creature. So, Otaku, did you like this crazy theory? Comment which character should appear next. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. I picked out this video here for you to watch. Check it out, Otaku.